Yesterday, the related department supervisors and management members, the relevant assistant management members, the supervisors above the medium tier are their name lists are mainly set for now. And we had a meeting to summarize the things that had happened, also planned for the future as well. In general, I think it went quite well. Also, it's going to take about another half a month or so to make adjustment of the management team. Majority of the people and the result of the members are quite content. And I'm very grateful that you're willing to take the time to serve the Sangha. There are some adjustments based on various kinds of thoughts. There are people who think that they're very content and happy about the positions that they have to serve the Sangha, and some of them don't necessarily wish to serve the Sangha to take the time yet. They wish to probably engage in study and contemplation. Since everyone's situation is different, you can report to the Khenpos and Khenmos if you have a different idea. In general, by the end of the year and maybe next year, we will use a different method to carry out the management activities. I really hope that you can see this opportunity as an opportunity of practice. Some may wish to accept their role, some may not. And I think whatever kinds of result, it is really because of the trust of the Sangha, and it is because of the matured causes and conditions. The management teams in different departments should be respected. I hope that you can respect them. As I said yesterday, I think majority of you are of similar kinds of level, but some of them may feel that they're more senior and they're more accomplished in certain ways. But I myself, I really respect all management team. For example, a certain Khenpo, a certain Khenmo, if they were to be younger than me, and maybe they lack certain aspects of knowledge than me, but I still respect them. In the morning, for example, there were certain things that I disagreed with them. I told them straightforward and I said that I do not really agree and I do not really want to comply. But since you are in management, though that I do not agree with you in principle, but I still respect your decision. The issue that we were discussing about was that in May we will be reorganizing the project. We will have a project of reorganizing and rebuilding all the roofs in Laronggar, but it has been stalling for a long period of time and couldn't continue. And I kept on asking about the management team, and I said that I will listen to whatever that you would decide. In fact, I do respect the management team. I am not being sarcastic at all. There are people who only are respectful to the leaders, and they're only respectful to the leaders in front of their face, but not so much behind their back. But I think genuinely respecting each other is really important. For example, after Phuntsok Rinpoche's passing, the Khenpos and Khenmos would take the rota to manage the entire Sangha over here. And if people do not respect the management team or management Khenpos Khenmos in that year, everything would become quite chaotic. In monasteries, if there's an abbot, then those abbots would be respected. And if you were to receive any teachings from Khenpos and Khenmos, since you received Dharma from them, then whatever they've taught you, you need to remember them by heart. Also, you need to respect them. Similarly, when there's a management team that is in charge of certain departments, you need to respect them. Slowly and slowly, when I look at the management team, people of my age are rarely seen. And this is really just the natural law, because the senior ones will slowly step down. The younger Khenpos and Khenmos management team will continue to take on this task. And I think to carry on the tradition of respecting each other is so important. In Tibet, we say that if people are respectful to each other, they are just like the kings and ministers. They're just like the wood that can lift the roofs and houses. So respect is really the core. If you can respect each other, then you can become the ministers or kings. It is not that to say that all kings are 100% perfect, but we need to respect each other. This is the theme of my speech today, respect.
Zendang paru tu shimba ching chang ji shawi dang zendang ru chimbo zen ji shawi dang zenda semcha chiba le dur ji shawi dang zenda sang ji ji jang tam stun ji shawi dang zenda de jang so ba tam chi dog zi ji shawi dang zenda ne chen da ne ba ji shawi dang zenda ri ji wa kang ge yi ge chi ba ri chimbo ring chimmo gyar mo zun ban de te ta wa la so bi dang zenda ya sa ja to bran gyaro de ne chon dan de la jiba number server Darkajik sor do Jondan de da Gandam Chevra Gye Ike Chigbi Ringa Chembo Ganda Tobra Ngir Rigi Wa Yerin Kurmonji Ga Chong Kir Chembo Na Gang Ike Chigbo Ringa Chembo Zanbara Sheda Hlobra Sheda Tsarjan Yalla Shebi Chu Mawa Yodo Jondan De Yerin Kurmonji Ga Chong Kir Chembo Chur Mawa Tele Tawa Dam Chig Gyewa Dam Nyamkir Gyu Slat dang chogo ji lakso rikji ba ter ter ji gang yi ke chig bo rang chemo de zimba chujir mawa tedagna kumbago, chur mawa tedagna tevjan shabadam nyambartago, njoba sunum genjambadam jabara tago, pombo jenda tavrashago, chenja maluk bazonga jenda tavrashago, rumboche pombo jenda tavrashago, tambarav jambarav shiba, yevjingi no rajendar tavrashago. Chu jim zod jendar tavrashago, joa joa shiba jendar tavrashago, rigiva, churmavati, shibam tongne tezum markiva. 下过日记为觉得上就生会3年，不像俺送的介绍人，就是嘛话的呢，自证年巴当、学班年巴当、穷马当、不当，父母用是过了话，我们讲生活当这边用是讲。va shol mavdan ba yano tene chondan de lab jabar number serve under ke sordo chondan de Ki kapsarva jindun tsarlo teni shanchu sanwa sanwa jimbo jabar number serva shanchu sanwa kimba dang rabde shungwa dang kiega dang womo gyab chagar tong tame yonsu kurde sonne churma wa delam chupili shevi shir li dig dang li lam dang joban dang nacha dang changwi jimbo dang hongen dang semodo shit ba chane changwa dang 年纪过人当所的艰难吧，当这样过那吧那做吧，也有那想法当认真的，过了吧认真的过了吧，当也是干些干的想为过当没至于过当人，样没多那做办的，但是没多巴拉个么哒，本大日个本扎日个本大日。 Bandarga Mandarava dang Mandarava Chimbo dang Manza Khasha Manza Khaga dang Manza Khaga Chimbo dang Udumugara dang Zhanyang Shangame to number Natsuba Zambaka dang Karabura dang Batatla dang Adumugara dang Bragara dang Shinda Shinda Kyoda dang Samna dang Samana dang Bama Nagala soba andab mabjava ngarbin zi barashi badan shakashiki toga shakashi shashar ka ta mubarashi ne ngumbodon zerodon marbodon karbodon shirki ka togdan janyam jebadon metokar number natsuba te to kerni yerin kurmonji ka jongjir chimbo kala vardera son tem tarki kurmonji ka jongjir chimbo shimbadan jurma Galavartere son te chimbalar kan walam go yishagam sa te ti tsachim nyambadam shoba nyambadam sholam mavdam bam doni gdig dan lagma lam te dag dan lam te dag dan ku dan gen dan zhi dan shigba te dag kam choba chimbo shini churma wa tim dan da tharmo jarte Kima ho chujig teram nyongram zadab dirsig terab sagbar tavi jamso dam nyamba chola ho mani so Mirjirwa tamchi jirno to jirwago, ladang ladang nuzhindang lamayandang namkardang dang magamchadang tochi chimbodang madang mamayandang chodli chu nyante chula chula chu nyambi ze tamchadang darwarib gyodo kyo nogdurji chimbodang nyambi chuji namzang chaparam zato simchin korub chingwa lip chingwa mangbo daga yongsa taram zato simchin kang kormunjik Zhōngqir jīmbō nāgni xiāngar tāgda yōngsur dā bām tōngwā tē tāgna sōnum dāng dāmbā lāg sō tēm tōngwā tāgda dīgbā tāmchīm chukburim zāt Khwēr nā mī nāg jī ndāb mā nir dā cīgbara gyō bā tēb zhīn dā kyōdām tōngwā tāgda dīgbā tāmchīm chukburim shē dā tēb zhīn shabā chab chūmbā yāng dāgbar zōgba sāng jī nām Kien tō zhān yāng zhāng chū sāng hwā shīwā chab chūb gyār tōng tamā dāng cāmbā dāng jīg chē dā dāng wāng shīg jīmbō dāng nyamā dāng dāwā dāng lōngā lā dāng Chi ladang me ladang chu ji gyarbo chimbo vizhiga tak jan kyolam chubi libya vizhirda. Chugo teni churmawa te tak le terke ji me so rikjiwa gyongyoba marke chi chobo nyumumba na chakbago, chabago, korvam samago, tiyakin korlo kibarab shebago, kanga ike chikbar nga chemmo, jiba tena do chakdang jirdang dang tamik. Mugu de huirnan zami chiu xir zhime mugu ba de zhindari jiwa gunga legi ike chikba ringa jijarmu chimmo togo ba di lilando chakda jirdang dang tamiki mugu so di nabzhiba damjir nabra serwa kanga la tambar zong ten darki jik sordo wambo nyambara magda njira ji lam tora la lam tombram zo jivdag chujir kumbala chujir ngombram zo jigab daga lana meba yang dagbar shanjibda Savunur tsura jiga chuji shkabdang shindang nebi tsara jiyang ne yongsa dagbar tsura jiga mabjibya gewa toba 진로와 담지담 채우고 즉년밥 라마다가 이게 지금 버르는 제모 소르지 디 다가라라나메 바양도 버조버 상집담녀도 몸버조버 산르자버 겨고 추진 코르로 남밥 저니 코르 겨고 샘전 담진 코르 등어를 용서다를 겨고 문 마토베 추토버 겨고 이게 지금 버르는 제모 야르모 토브라 겨고 이게 지금 버르는 제모 야르모 다가라 소르지 군다 캬다 텐도 겨러지 텐도 겨러지 맘치바 남랑 네즈저지테니 주르마바티 인더크 지저도 이게 주버르는 쳔버디알 몬던 hukum tsirte ndono dorje tsoko ndono dorje mshibi tsoko laname 이시지 tsoko mazabe 이시지 tsoko 당남에 밤 당남에 비 tsoko tarwalan지 버시 비 tsoko 대정 소be 이시 넘버 도비 tsoko 노척단 지당 땀ምግ당 거르 등으로 용서 봉 tsoko 탈람 개바 탐지지 tsoko 상단다 넘버 tarwa당 당연진 뇽브르 조브 tsoko 주 탐지 란지 버시 비 tsoko ortaqdal harnam dobr시 비 tsoko rigiva 강 tarwando 반 네 나초바 남스 랍드 중화당 고고와 나초스 랍드 중환더 따르테 왕보고와당 왕보고와당 까르보고와당 힘비고와데 녀막다가네 왕식 진보라 랍드 중 직제당 남가당 당 제르당 르마당 네 때덕더 양 랍드 중 때덕라양 타르와 메도 고야마 연노 더지장 마연노 라망보당 참바당 직제당 왕식 진보당 잡신제 왕보당 아니마당 다와당 롱고하당 지하당 메일하당 추지절보 신지당 절보 진보지다도 양 직든지 이게 저버 침모 롱오 때도 이게 저버는 절보 진보 너 저들 롱을 기바 전는데 이저들 이게 저버는 절보 진보도 그 토브런 저 타르발락 저러 주바탐저 넘버 서란더 스타트 회르나 시럽지 바로도 셴바도 정서바탐저 스티브르 저때 대형 타르모저네 이게 저비르는지 저모 진보라 시험자네 대정 서바 접점바용도 부르고 산지 상주상와 망보 지바르타르 무저 리기원 도남제르타 버냠브르 저와인데 리기원 달아양 종즈 리베장 타바 진보 넘버 망봄도 당양 디냐바당 롱탐바당 스스자바당 체드조바당 랑즈당 토바조바당 더타 데바당 키비라바당 신더 제바당 주르마도 쇼와당 탈람베바당 바당 제바당 타라토버 제바당 만도제 Chukkude janda mafshiji sinone toba sa siname tobala nyambon zombayin namjina telam jewen nyambon zombayin de kerne dagi kimder no nam ba yonso kanten jokku
Let us continue with our class on the Sutra of the Baskets display. In the previous class, we had already covered the story of the previous life of Avalokiteshvara, who was, when he was the Balaha horse, the king of horses. His story demonstrates that within samsara, living in samsara is like living in a Rakshasi's world. If one were to give up grasping and supplicate to Avalokiteshvara, then one would be able to part from this horrifying samsara. In the previous class, we've already studied the previous life of Shakyamuni Buddha and the previous life of Avalokiteshvara. And then over here, now let's continue from last time. Shakyamuni Buddha said that Savarnivarana Vishkambin, those are the sufferings I experienced when I was a head merchant. And Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara was Balaha, the king of horses, and he rescued me from the fear of death. Though it seems that Shakyamuni Buddha attained Buddhahood first, before Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, and then Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara attained the noble fruition after Shakyamuni Buddha attained Buddhahood. Most of the Buddhists would consider in such a way. However, we've studied this story that demonstrates, in fact, Avalokiteshvara had rescued the Buddha when he was still practicing at the causal stage. Another key point to remember is that as long as we truly supplicate Avalokiteshvara, then whatever kinds of horrifying situations that we encounter, whatever kinds of conditions we're in, we can be liberated and be protected. At the time of studying the Lotus Sutra, we also studied and learned that whomsoever would see or remember the forms and the image of Avalokiteshvara and remember Avalokiteshvara in general, then one would be able to get liberated from all kinds of fearful situations and would eradicate all kinds of obscurations. In both the Tibet and Chinese traditions, the Buddhists would place great importance in Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara. In Tibet, we have lots of sacred places where we can pay homage to Avalokiteshvara, to Manjushri, to Mahatmaprata. And in China mainland, there is a mountain called Potala Mountain that is said to be the mountain where we can that is the residing place of Avalokiteshvara. In the Lotus Sutra, it states that there is the mountain in the south named Potala, and over there residing the Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara. And then there's descriptions of the mountains and surrounded by a certain type of ocean. Those are stated quite clearly in the Lotus Sutra. Some said that those are the descriptions by the Buddha stating that the southern ocean that is difficult for human beings of this world to reach. Now there is a Potala mountain in the southern part of China, and some considers that as the residing place of Avalokiteshvara, but that is not necessarily the residing place that's described in the sutras. Maybe it is a sacred mountain that's been blessed by Avalokiteshvara. It is possible. The now Potala mountain had another name, which was Meilin Mountain. About 1,000 years ago, the name changed to Potala Mountain. And the reason was because about 1,000 years ago, there was a monk who wanted to take a statue of Avalokiteshvara to somewhere else. And then by ship, he encountered great waves and ghastly wind, and he really couldn't take that statue away. So he considers that it is because the statue doesn't want to leave the mainland China. Therefore, he placed that statue in this particular area, in the particular area where he then built a monastery and called it the Bodhisattva that doesn't want to live, that doesn't want to part, doesn't want to leave. And then Phuntsho Rinpoche also visited there as well. So people since then considers that area as the residing place of Avalokiteshvara. So that's considered as the sacred mountain that's been blessed by Avalokiteshvara. There are also other different sacred mountains, such as Mount Rutai and then Mount Johua, which is the residing place considered as for Kshitigarbha Bodhisattva. Also Mount Ame, that's considered as the residing place of Samadabhadra. Anyhow, whenever we have the opportunity, I think we should try our best to pay homage to Avalokiteshvara's monastery or statues and images. There are different kinds of images, of course, a variety of images to Avalokiteshvara. There's for example, the four-armed Avalokiteshvara. There's the lot of different forms of Avalokiteshvara in the mainland tradition. We shouldn't think that, oh, this is the particular statue, this is a correct one, that one is not correct. We shouldn't consider in such a way, because Avalokiteshvara would be able to manifest in various forms to liberate and benefit sentient beings. Whenever we see the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas with a variety of forms and different images, we should consider that just as a good actor would dress up differently for different roles, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, in order to benefit different sentient beings, they would manifest differently as well. That is why in the Chinese traditions, the Theravada tradition, the Tibetan tradition, there are such a great variety of the manifestations and the images. So we need to practice sacred outlook whenever we look at those statues. Also, we need to practice at all times to supplicate to Avalokiteshvara. We need to remember the name, we need to chant the 6 syllables mantra so that our obstacles can be overcome, and whenever we encounter some horrifying situations, we should wholeheartedly to make those supplications. There are people, of course, that had never encountered some severe obstacles, but I'm sure many people had encountered great obstacles in the past, and probably those things would happen. And whenever that were to happen, do not get so, don't freeze on the spot. Rather, that is exactly the moment you need to make supplication, and you need to pay homage, and you need to remember Avalokiteshvara and the 3 jewels. That is the most important part. Some people with good practice, if they were to practice daily and familiarize themselves with supplication, they would be able to remember doing so. If you don't familiarize yourself on a daily basis, then whenever you encounter those obstacles, you probably would have a difficult time to remember those. Over here, the Buddha says that Sarvanivarana Vishkambin, it is like this: I cannot calculate Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, Avalokiteshvara's accumulation of merit, but I can say just a little about his pores. So here, Shakyamuni Buddha will briefly expound the merit of Avalokiteshvara, the merit of the pore of Avalokiteshvara. So today our class is on the pore. Usually for mundane beings, our pores are for perspiration and so on. Other than that, there's really nothing else. But for Avalokiteshvara, the pores, the merit of the pores are beyond our imagination. And for people without faith, I think it's very difficult for them to even imagine it. If the merit of a pore of Avalokiteshvara is beyond our imagination, then how could we even have a little bit of idea about the merit of the body, speech, and mind of Avalokiteshvara. And over here, the Buddha does not give the teaching of the complete merit of Avalokiteshvara, rather just about a poor. Over here, the Buddha says that Savarnivarana Vishkambin, it is like this: 1 trillion Gandharvas dwell in a poor named Suvarna. They do not experience the suffering of samsara and are satisfied by perfect happiness. They perceive divine objects but are free from attachment. They have no aversion. They have no ill mindset. But we, as mundane beings, we have lots of those aversions to the others who will harm you, and we have greed, anger, and ignorance, and we sometimes have the ill feelings to the others and wanting to take revenge upon the ones that harmed you. But those beings abiding inside the poor of Avalokiteshvara have no aversion, no ill minds, no ill intentions, and they do not become angry, they never have malice, they all dwell on noble eightfold path and always aspire to the Dharma. Wouldn't it be wonderful to be living in a poor of Avalokiteshvara? If we were to stay there, wouldn't that be quite fantastic? In the winter over here, it's really cold, and sometimes we don't have electricity, sometimes we don't have enough provisions, we don't have enough food, and sometimes we don't have good health nor good mood, and sometimes we don't see the purity of others' activities, and sometimes we have lots of good wishes but not enough power to do so, and sometimes we encounter lots of obstacles. So, wouldn't that be wonderful to have a little cabin inside the poor of Avalokiteshvara and live there for a while? Even the merit of a poor of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are so inconceivable. According to Madhyamika Avatara, it says that in each of the pores, there could be the manifestation of the immeasurable Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. And for moments to moments, in even the shortest moments, the Devas and Asuras can manifest and appear in those pores as well. In an instant, the Devas, Asuras, and Gandharvas, and all of those sentient beings can manifest, can appear within the pore of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Over here, it mainly talks about the inconceivable, miraculous powers of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. There is a teaching. There's a Shastra, it's called the individual, the Shastra on the individual merits, which is a Shastra on the Iko Agama Sutra. It describes the 4 kinds of inconceivables. The first one is the sentient being. The sentient beings are inconceivable, and the world is inconceivable, Naga is inconceivable, and the Buddha is inconceivable. We know that through even the movies and descriptions, the Nagas are indeed inconceivable. Also, the world is inconceivable, and the sentient beings are inconceivable. And then when it comes to the inconceivable quality of the world, it states the story of once Brahman and Purna, Venerable Purna, was having a conversation, and during that time, Purna saw this pond full of flowers, full of lotus flowers, and within those gaps of the lotus flowers, he saw 4 kinds of armies of horses, of various kinds of soldiers, and so on. And then he asked Venerable Purna, saying that, wow, I just saw those 4 great armies within the needle-like gap of the lotus flowers? Is it because I am having an illusion from my eyes, or did I really see it? And then Venerable Purna said that, no, you indeed had seen it. He said that it is because the Devas and Asuras were in a battlefield, and then Asuras lost. So those were just simply the miraculous manifestations, and somehow you saw it. You saw their world and what was happening over there within the gaps of the lotus flowers. We can see that the merits of the Buddha is also inconceivable. At the time of studying the sutras, for example, the Shurangama Sutra, we had already studied 60 or 70 classes, and we haven't even went through half of it yet. And that was just a record of a conversation between the Buddha and Ananda. It's just a simple conversation between them. And we can see that trying to understand their language is really difficult, and it's so inconceivable. The meaning of it is so inconceivable. So the Buddha is indeed inconceivable. The Nagas and then the world is inconceivable. The world, the sentient beings are inconceivable. The sentient beings are inconceivable because it talks about the karma of sentient beings are inconceivable. I think when it comes to lots of the inconceivable aspects of the world, the Mahayana Buddhists can be more open to be inclusive. There are lots of teachings on the, for example, astronomy and on divinity and on religion and on certain kinds of mystic and metaphysical teachings in the West, which included lots of the secrets and inconceivable knowledge that is beyond our imagination and beyond our current mode of education, because we only would consider what we can see and perceive to be true. Other than that, we don't really even want to consider about the inconceivable truth about this world. Let's continue to look at the sutra. Over here it says that in this poor named Suvarna there is a wish-fulfilling jewel named Avabhasha. Whenever the Gandharvas wish for something, their wishes are fulfilled. Whatever they wish for, this particular in this particular poor, their wish can be fulfilled. Wouldn't that be wonderful to have this, to be living in this poor that is called Suvarna, which means the golden poor. The next poor's name is Krishna, which is the black poor. This is not as good as the golden poor, maybe because of the karma of the sentient beings over there. So there is some difference in this Krishna poor, within which 1 trillion rishis dwell in this Krishna poor. Some have 1 clairvoyance, some have 2, and some have 3, and some 4, some 5, and some 6 clairvoyances. Those miraculous penetrations. Usually we would say that the ones that has 6 clairvoyance or 6 miraculous penetrations are arhats. Maybe the rishi have the 6 clairvoyances as well. Now within the poor, there are lots of trees as well. The ground of the poor is silver, and mountains are gold with silver peaks adorned with rubies. The golden mountain has the silver peaks. According to the Chinese translation, it says that there are 37 mountains that's adorned with the lotus jewel. But over here in the Tibetan translation, it says that there are 77 such mountains that's adorned by rubies with the silver peaks. Rather, it is adorned not with the rubies, but with lotus, red lotus. Apparently, in other translations, the translation or the meaning could be a bit different. Within those mountains that's been adorned with the red lotus, the red lotus or red rubies, on each of those peaks live 80,000 rishis. In the Chinese translation, it says 84,000. The Tibetan says 80,000. Those rishis have leaf huts. There are lots of wish-fulfilling trees with red trunks and gold and silver leaves that shine forth the light that like jewels. There are 4 pools near each of the wish-fulfilling tree. In the Chinese translation, it says that within each of the 4 jewel-adorned pools, there are, or within each of the pools, there are 4 jewel-adorned pools. But in the Tibetan translation, it says that there are 4 pools near each of the wish-fulfilling tree. Some are filled with water that has 8 qualities, and some are completely filled with divine flowers. The area around them is completely adorned by wish-fulfilling trees that are divine coral trees hung with divine adornments, hung with diadems and earrings, hung with 108 string necklaces and 84 string necklaces, and hung with bracelets, and their leaves are made of jewel and gold. In each of those wish-fulfilling trees, there live 100 Gandharvas. The Gandharvas enjoy music, and that is why over there the Gandharvas would play music, all kinds of beautiful music. At the time of playing music, there are lots of animals, such as herds of deers and birds and so on. All kinds of animals and beasts. At the time of listening to the music that's being played by the Gandharvas, they would contemplate deeply. They see the suffering and happiness of beings in samsara, and the way in which suffering is experienced in Jambudvipa. All kinds of suffering, such as birth, aging, sickness, and death. They see separation from the desired and beloved ones, and encounters with the dislike. They see human beings undergoing many kinds of suffering. Also, they see the suffering of the animals as well as the Gandharvas. They see that the sufferings are very similar to that of the beings in Jambudvipa. After contemplating deeply in such a way the deers and birds, remember the name of the precious king of the Mahayana Sutras, the Sutra of the Basket's display. All of these animals and beasts indeed have such great virtuous roots. Being animals, they can still contemplate upon the suffering of beings. unlike how beings in Jambudvipa can't remember suffering, even at the time of enduring them. At that time, after the deers and animals and birds remember the name of the sutra, food with supreme divine flavors would appear. Divine aromatic substances appear and divine clothing appears. The animals sometimes do wear clothing. Maybe sometimes they like to wear the clothing of the divine ones. Whenever they wish for something, their wishes are fulfilled. This is within the Krishna Pour, the black pour. It points out that when the beings living in the black pour enduring certain types of suffering or pain, at the time of remembering even the title, the name of this particular sutra, their suffering would be alleviated. And now Bodhisattva Sarvanivarana Vishkambin said to the Bhagavat, saying that, Bhagavat, I'm utterly astonished. This is so rare. He started saying in such a way. And then the Bhagavat asked, Noble son, why are you astonished? And then Bodhisattva Sarvanivarana Vishkambin said to the Bhagavat, saying that if those kinds of things appear just because someone thinks of the name of the precious king of the Mahayana Sutra, the Sutra of the Basket's display, then those who listen to cause to be written out, possess, recite, study, and have their minds completely focused on the precious king of Mahayana Sutras, the Sutra of the Basket's display, will have happiness. Because simply the animals would remember the title of the sutra would be able to gain such great amount of happiness. Then the ones that listens to cause to be written, even write one word of this particular sutra. Then this person would no longer need to see those sufferings of samsara. So those who write even a single letter from the precious king of the Mahayana Sutras, the Sutra of the Basket's display, will have happiness and will not see these sufferings of samsara. People will not be reborn as untouchable. They will not be born as the lowest of the caste or lowest of the class or of mixed caste. In the Tibetan translation, it refers to butchers and those that would kill the others. So I think if we were to even copy this sutra a little bit per day, that would be very beneficial. Some of the seniors over here says that it would be better for me not to read because I want to protect my eyesight. Well, it may not be that beneficial to you to simply protect your eyes, because I think in order to protect our eyes, if you were to avoid reading books, it is not necessarily that your eyes would be brighter, but if you want to have a better eyesight, then read sutras, copy and transcribe sutras. Your eyes would not lose sight because of it. Rather, you would gain great merits because of it. Also, they will not be reborn as someone with defective senses. They will not be reborn as lame, hunchbacked, with a deformed nose, a goiter, or a cleft lip, nor with leprosy. So the body would not be bent, would not have those knock knees, nor to have large-bodied, nor to have leprosy. people would not have those kinds of appearances that's disliked by others. If you want to be reborn as someone with the perfect endowments, then it would be the best for us to make auspicious connections to the sutra. In such a way, you will be able to be reborn with beautifully endowed body. On top of that, you will have health, you have great strength and clear faculties. If we were to simply copy one word of the sutra, the merit would be this great. Then if we were to copy the whole sutra, to uphold this sutra, to chant it and to supplicate to it, to make offering to it, to revere it, then the merit would be far surpass that. Of course, if you don't believe in causes and conditions, then I can't really convince you of its merit. If you don't believe in the Vajra speech of the Buddha, then there's no way that I can convince you. If you only want to believe in what you believe, I can't really do much about it. However, you should know that this is the Vajra speech if you have faith, and you should know that this sutra is endowed with great merit, great qualities that would be very beneficial to you. After hearing that, the Bhagavad gave his approval, saying that that is excellent, Savarnivarana Vishkambin, your eloquence and your teaching of this kind of dharma to a gathering of devas, nagas, yakshas, gandharvas, asuras, garudas, kimnaras, mahoragas, humans, non-humans, upasakas, upasikas is excellent, excellent. The reason that this great assembly listened to this Dharma teaching was because the Bodhisattva Savarnivarana Vishkambin asked the question, what is that light coming forth from hell realm? And then the Buddha said that it was Avalokiteshvara. And then Bodhisattva Savarnivarana Vishkambin started asking about the quality and merits of Avalokiteshvara, which then resulted to the great number of gathering. All the sentient beings received such a supreme teaching. So it was definitely because of Bodhisattva Savarnivarana Vishkambin asked this question, the beings received this great merit. So the Buddha then praised him for asking that great question. I think the sutra is very similar to the Lotus Sutra. And part of the teaching that's already included in the Lotus Sutra, and then the later part, for example, the mantra and so on, those are the ones that's expounded around the time of Shakyamuni Buddha. So the sutra expounded the teaching that's before Shakyamuni Buddha, and then some of it is around Shakyamuni Buddha's time. It is just similar to some of the novels that the authors would write. Sometimes they would talk about what had happened in the past, and then sometimes the timeline would be changed to the present moment. Therefore, we can get a little bit confused because the timeline would be different. So we can see that not only the novels would play around with the timeline. In fact, in the sutras, the Buddhas would talk about the incidents that had happened in the past and sometimes in the present moment too. And now, Bodhisattva Savarnivarana Vishkambin said to the Bhagavat, when you teach what I request, the devas gain unwavering faith. Many of our fellow Sangha members, at the time of studying Sutra, I believe at the very beginning of studying sutras, many of you felt quite confused, and sometimes we feel that it's a bit difficult to understand it, and it could be quite mythical in some parts of it. But slowly, with our experience, and our familiarity with the sutras, then we would naturally receive the blessings and power from the sutra. After we can be in sync with the sutra, we would be able to get connected to the sutra as well. Of course, we have very different connections to the sutra because of our past merit as well as the connections, the causes and conditions. At the time when Savarnivarana Vishkambin Bodhisattva asked the question, and then the Buddha replied the question, great numbers of devas and human beings had already increased their faith. I believe that we can also have a firm faith afterwards. After studying the sutra, we should definitely be able to propagate the teaching of Avalokiteshvara. If we can do that, not only we can help the beings of Buddhists as well as the non-Buddhists. In the future, you need to see yourself as Avalokiteshvaras as well. It is indeed quite important for you to increase your own confidence. At the time of benefiting sentient beings by propagating the teachings of Avalokiteshvara, by propagating the money mantra is our goal this time of studying this sutra. In the worldly sense, we would engage in a workshop or training for 20 days, and then the company would ask you to engage in this particular activity for the rest of your life. So I think after this time we studied the sutra that's very much connected to Avalokiteshvara in Larangar, this sacred place that also has great connection to Avalokiteshvara. We should definitely generate great faith to the teaching of Avalokiteshvara, to the mantra that is the 6 syllables mantra. Because when Phuntsogren Rinpoche was still alive, there's often all kinds of rainbows and lights that appears of Avalokiteshvara. Also, the mantra and the seed syllables and the relics would manifest. Let's look at the sutra. The Bhagavata now give his approval, saying that excellent noble son, that you repeatedly make this request is excellent, excellent. Because Bodhisattva Savarnivarana Vishkambin kept on asking excellent questions. At first, the light that radiated forth, and then asking about the qualities related to the poor of Avalokiteshvara. So those questions are indeed really good. And then the Buddha continued to expound the quality of the poor of Avalokiteshvara. So he said that Savarnivarana Vishkambin, it is like this. Beyond the Krishna poor, there is the poor named Ratna Kundala. Many trillions of female Gandharvas live within it. Those female Gandharvas have excellent figures. They're really beautiful and very attractive. They're almost similar to the Devis, the celestial realm females. So they have magnificent fair complexions, their bodies are adorned with divine jewels, and most importantly, even though they have those beauty, they are not afflicted by suffering of desire. There are all kinds of great sufferings within the human realm when people get quite afflicted. It almost feels like their heart is going to split in half and going to shatter, and then this whole world has transformed into great darkness. The whole world started spinning. So we can see that people's afflictions and their karmic force can be very different. There are beings at the times of being afflicted under those klesha attack. I think it could be quite detrimental. But those kinds of suffering and afflictions to practitioners could be nothing, could be rather quite workable. For example, if you were to face certain suffering in your physical body. Being a practitioner, you can transform illness onto the path of practice. If you were to go through certain kinds of obstacles in life, such as losing your job or such as losing a loved one, and so on and so forth, as a practitioner, you would probably be able to think about those events from a different angle. For example, you would think that, well, since now I don't have attachment to this relationship and now I'm free. Or if you were to find yourself in a situation such as being expelled, for example, Lung Chenpa also was in such a situation, and he composed a 30 shloka teaching, saying that look at you, the wise ones, that made the decision of expelled a person like me. So he composed a song like that, and then he went back. I think lots of the suffering in this human world could be quite harsh to certain people without inner strength. They would feel that it would be better for me not to be alive even. Avalokiteshvara, could you bless me so that I can die on the spot? Lama Chinnoa have such great blessings. May the Guru bless me so that I can part from this world, grant me blessings so that I can part from this world that's full of suffering. Well, but look at this world, living in the poor of Avalokiteshvara, there is not even a little bit of suffering. They're not afflicted by any bit of a suffering of anger, and not afflicted by suffering of stupidity, and their bodies do not experience the suffering that humans do. Those Gandharva maidens remember the name of Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara whenever in the three periods, the three times they remember it. All valuable things appear for them. Savanivarana Vishkambin also said to Bhagavat, saying that Bhagavat, I will go to those pores because I want to see them. See, not only that we want to go to those pores, the Bodhisattva Savanivarana Vishkambin also want to. In fact, all of those kinds of storylines within the sutras can be quite meaningful and very interesting. Whenever we look at or read into the sutras, it seems as if we are looking at a transcendental series, a TV series, but a transcendental TV series. At that time, the Buddha told Savanivarana Vishkambin, saying that, noble son, those pores cannot be perceived, just as the element of space cannot be perceived. It is not that there is some substantial thing that is the pore of Avalokiteshvara that you can then get into it. Noble son, those pores cannot be perceived, just as the element of space cannot be perceived. Noble son, those pores cannot be perceived and they cannot be touched. Bodhisattva Mahasattva Samantabhadra spent 12 years searching for the boundaries of those pores. But the translation is a bit different in the Tibetan version as well as in the English version that's translated from Sanskrit. In both of those versions, it says that Samantabhadra spent 12 years wandering in search of those pores, but he never saw them. But the Chinese version says that Samantabhadra searched the boundaries of the pores. Over here, the Chinese version says that Samantabhadra saw hundreds of Buddhas living in each of those pores, but in the Tibetan version it says that if Samantabhadra couldn't find those pores, then how could hundreds of Buddhas find those? So how could any bodhisattvas find those pores if the Buddhas cannot find them?
什么出家藏菩萨也不敢去了，就是我也现在不太想去，就是可能去肯定找不到的。普贤菩萨找不到的话，我们
Samadabhadra Bodhisattva couldn't find it, then how could we find those pores? I guess Bodhisattva Savarnivarana Vishkambin must be quite discouraged from that. So in this translation it says that he did not even see the 100 Buddhas who live in each pores, let alone any bodhisattvas. If Samadabhadra couldn't find the pores, then how could I, Savarnivarana Vishkambin, find those pores? Though that the pores are so wondrous and well adorned, but it's very difficult for me to be there. So at that time, the Buddha told him that the inconceivable body and form of Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara, maybe this description is both from the ultimate and the relative. They are the combination of the inconceivable phenomena. And this is the praises to describe the realization and the insights of Avalokiteshvara. And then he continued to say that, noble son, this bodhisattva is taught to be illusory, unattainable, and subtle. This bodhisattva is described as being unstained and as being with form, a vast form, 100,000 arms, 1,000,000,000,000 eyes, and 11 heads. Usually we would practice upon the 11-faced Avalokiteshvara. This is the one that is widely practiced in Tibet. Many monasteries also have the 1,000-faced and 1,000 eyes Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara. The great merit and blessings are quite unfathomable. We will further elaborate on those qualities later. In the Chinese tradition, it is said that after the passing of the Buddha, after 800 years of the passing of Nirvana of the Buddha, there was once a country called Koshaila, and then at that time, a 3-year pandemic swept over the country, which caused over half of the population died in this country. After half of the population died in this country, the king and the ministers started to supplicate to the great compassionate one, that is Avalokiteshvara. And then one day, the king dreamt of the 11-faced Avalokiteshvara, grant him blessings by giving him a touch on the crown. And then he said that it would be the best for you to start building the statue of the 11-faced Avalokiteshvara, which could dispel all kinds of obstacles and disasters. After the king had awakened, he then started building many Avalokiteshvara's statue, the 11-faced Avalokiteshvara's statue. In result, that country stopped having any kinds of severe disease for 100 years. So I think it is quite essential for us to build the 11-faced Avalokiteshvara. But I think we don't necessarily need to fundraise to build the 1,000-faced and 1,000 eyes Avalokiteshvara. Rather, we can use those tata modes to make those statues, and then you can place it at your home or to place it in auspicious places. According to most of the traditions, there are 5 layers to the statue of the 11-faced Avalokiteshvara. The first layer is called the compassionate, and then the first one is kindness, and second one is compassionate, and third one is joyful, and then the fourth one is wrathful. On the fifth is the great protector of beings, Amitabha. But of course, through different periods of history, there are different variations. For example, I found a few. The first one is from Dunhuang. It is from the late Tang Dynasty, which is a bit similar to the Chinese Kuan Yin statue, the Chinese Avalokiteshvara's form. This is again from Dunhuang Grove. And then the next one is from Japan. This is around 700 CE. Also, again, 11-faced Avalokiteshvara. This is similar to both Tang Dynasty as well as the Japanese. The form is very much leaning to that style. And then this one is from Inner Mongolia, also very much practiced upon through the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. As I said, each layer of the form would manifest in according to what I've stated earlier. So it's layer by layer. And then the next one is from Qing Dynasty, from Kangxi, around the time of Kangxi Emperor. And then the next one is from Qianlong Emperor's time, also Qing Dynasty. The different emperors also would make different kinds of images of Avalokiteshvara. Some are of 4 and some of 6. These photos that I'm showing are the ones that will be in auctions, so we cannot put this particular image in printing. Some said that in the Kagyu tradition, this is used widely. The forms of Avalokiteshvara is inconceivable. We can get a very small Avalokiteshvara, or the 1,000-eye, 1,000 heads, or 11-faced Avalokiteshvara's form to put it in our hand or put it in our books. In this way, it could help us to eradicate obstacles. Also, those kinds of forms can help us to generate a great compassion and great faith. This would be quite meaningful. Now, the 11-faced or 1,000-faced and 1,000 hands of Avalokiteshvara, at the time of practicing yoga, it is very helpful for us, as it says that as being a great yogin, a sublime yogin, as residing on the level of nirvana, as having an excellent mind, as having great wisdom, as liberated from existence, as being from the great family, as being impeccable, and as being wise, and therefore he casts no shadow in the midst of all phenomena. Thus, noble son, no one can see or hear Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara. No Tathagata can see the body of his true nature. If not even the Tathagatas can see the body of his true nature, let alone Samantabhadra or other bodhisattvas. Noble son, this Bodhisattva Mahasattva is inconceivable. He manifests inconceivable miracles. He has completely ripened many trillions of beings. He has led those beings onto the path to to enlightenment. Having entered that path, they have gone to the realm of Sukhavati, where they hear the Dharma from Tathagata Amitabha. And then Sarvanivarana Vishkambin Bodhisattva asked the Bhagavat, saying that, Bhagavat, how can I see Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara? Maybe at first he wanted to see the form of, he wanted to see the poor of Avalokiteshvara, but now it seems that he cannot see the poor of Avalokiteshvara. So he asked, how can I see Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara himself? The Bhagavat replied, Noble son, you will see him if he comes here to the Sahara universe to look at me and bow down to me and honor me. Sarvanivarana Vishkambin then said to the Bhagavat, I requested, Bhagavat, that Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara may come. So when would he be coming? The Bhagavat then answered, Noble son, Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara first comes when a being is ripened. The Buddha's answer is also that wait till the causes and conditions ripen. Whenever we ask questions saying that, well, when should I be coming here? And then my answer would be, you should wait for the causes and conditions to ripen. I think this is a good way to answer a question. And then Bodhisattva Mahasattva Sarvanivarana Vishkambin rested his cheek on his hand and then said, what point is there in my having a long life that is devoted to bad actions, deprived of the sight of Avalokiteshvara, blind and following a path of darkness? He's thinking to himself, if I don't even have the opportunity to bow down to Avalokiteshvara, then my life is completely dark as how the blinds are. There is no life, no vividness, and what is the point? Sometimes the Sarvanivarana Vishkambin also contemplates in such a way that it is meaningless if he lives without seeing Avalokiteshvara. And then he continued to ask the Bhagavat again, saying that, when is Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara coming? He's really in a rush to see Avalokiteshvara. So we'll continue tomorrow to see what happens.